emergency situation officials, which are looking at the situation at the moment. They have people on the ground going through the wreckage, rescuing those before taking over the bodies. Saying 22 people were killed in that explosion, another 10 injured, some of them really seriously injured, and it's possible the death toll from that attack could climb in the hours ahead as people get treatment at the scene and in hospitals around the central Moscow area. 30 minutes later, at 8:30 local time, another explosion ripping through the Park Kulturi metro station, which is on the same line, I believe, as Lubyanka. Again, another major metro station in the heart of the Russian capital, killing at least 12 people, again, according to the emergency situations district, injuring another 12, again with the possibility of those casualty figures rising as the hours pass. Now, after chaos this morning then on the metro system, the roads around those metro stations have been sealed off at what is the busiest time of the day in the Russian capital. The explosions clearly aimed at causing maximum casualties, occurring as they did at that very busy peak rush hour. I'm reading on my email now that there has in fact been a claim of responsibility posted on a website which is commonly used by Chechen separatist rebels, saying that Islamist separatists, potentially probably from the North Caucasus, carried out these attacks. So there has been a claim of responsibility at this point, but that has not been confirmed in any way as being legitimate by the Russian authorities. They have said, though, Don, that they are treating these are as acts of terrorism, and a full security alert is in place across the Russian capital.
Matthew, as you've been speaking, we've been looking at pictures from both Lubyanka and Park Kulturi metro station. We can see helicopters in the air. We've been seeing some passengers and commuters standing outside these stations. We saw one man a few minutes ago who obviously had some fairly significant facial injuries from these incidents. You say these blasts occurred at 8 o'clock at 8:30 a.m. What time is it with you now, Matthew? How long ago did these incidents take place, and what do you understand the situation to be at the stations themselves?
Well, it's just on 10:30, so the first attack took place 2.5 hours ago. The city is gridlocked. The metro stations aren't very far from the bureau where we're located in central Moscow, but the traffic is absolutely deadlocked, gridlocked from us. It's very busy this time of the morning anyway, but now many of the roads have been sealed off, including one of the main ring roads in the centre of the city has been sealed off for security reasons, as the authorities treat these scenes as crime scenes and sift through the wreckage after they've cleared the debris and the bodies and the injured, and sift through to see what forensic evidence they can get, try and build a picture of where this bomb came from, where these bombs came from, and who may have carried them out. What I also should report to you, and this is being said by the Russian prosecutors, and this is something new, that it seems that the bomb attacks were carried by suicide.
Well, I do apologise for you there. We seem to have lost Matthew at an unfortunate moment. He was about to give us a new development regarding this situation here in Moscow, but he had just brought us up to date with the latest casualty figures, saying that 22 people have been killed at the Lubyanka metro station and at least 12 with a further 12 injured at Park Kulturi. And he was also saying that the Russian authorities are describing these incidents as acts of terror, and indeed Islamist separatists have claimed responsibility. That was the latest that Matthew was giving us. Now, Moscow's metro system is a massive labyrinth, and its capacity is enormous. Let's just take a look at the numbers. Last year it served more than 2.3 billion passengers, and its trains can handle nearly 9 million passengers every day. The weekday average is thought to be around 7 million throughout the whole system. And Matthew was saying that actually, at the time of this incident, 500,000 people were thought to be using the metro system. Now, the Moscow metro includes 177 stations, and the lines measure nearly 3 100 kilometers. Metro systems are always extremely soft targets when it comes to acts of terror. When you think about the sheer logistics and the scale of the infrastructure here, it is impossible to probably secure a network such as this. Let's return to Matthew now, who unfortunately we lost the line with Matthew in Moscow just a few moments ago, but I gather that Matthew is now with us. And Matthew, you were about to tell us something I think quite important when the line went down.
Yeah, I don't know which point I lost connection with you there, but I was saying that I was listening to the Russian prosecutors, the Russian prosecutors earlier. They were saying that they believe these attacks at the two metro stations were carried out by suicide bombers. Each of them strapped with between 2 and 3 kilograms of high explosives. That's why they designated these acts of terrorism, and they've launched this criminal investigation into terrorism, which is obviously an extremely serious step to take, and one which has various security implications across the city and across the country, empowering the authorities further to make arrests as and when they want to. So I think that's something very interesting about this, something unseen in Moscow for some time. Suicide bombers striking at the city's very extensive, very busy metro station.
And again, Matthew, as you're speaking to us, Matthew, by the way, is in the car on the way to one of the underground stations that have been affected here. But as Matthew's speaking to us, we are looking at pictures of the injured being brought from below ground and being treated by the medical staff and personnel that are there on the scene. Matthew, as you understand it, is the subway system actually still running today, or has the rest of it been closed down?
Yeah, I understand it at this point. Large sections of it, at the very least, have been closed down. These metro stations that came under attack were on one of the main lines running through the centre of the Russian capital, and obviously that has been closed down because, obviously the authorities, the rescue workers, the rescue teams are needing to get to the areas to take out the injured and to sift through the wreckage for forensic evidence. There's a great deal of chaos. I'm actually at the Lubyanka site right now. We've just arrived by car, getting through what was very horrendous traffic to make it here. And there are lots of people out on the streets, lots of security around the very dominating building in the centre of this location, which is the headquarters of the former KGB, now called the FSB, the Federal Security Services. A lot of people have been evacuated from the metro station, who are waiting to go on and try and get a lift and try and get some transport to work. And so, yeah, a sort of a chaotic scene here at the moment. Don.
Matthew, you've lived in Moscow for many years. Up until about 6 years ago, it was fairly familiar with terrorist incidents, but not so much for the last 5 or 6 years. How do you think Muscovites will respond to today's news?
Well, I think everybody's really shocked that this has happened. I mean, everybody knows in this country that there's been a bubbling insurgency underway in the North Caucasus. It's been a very low-level insurgency, though, that hasn't really affected, to a very great extent, people living in the capital, people living elsewhere in this, vast country. But there has been a very vicious insurgency underway in the North Caucasus region. It's just that the authorities have managed to crack down on the rebels sufficiently to prevent them from carrying out attacks elsewhere in the country. Back in the early part of the 2000s, up till 2004, as you mentioned, bomb attacks like this in metro stations and shopping centres and apartment blocks were very common in Moscow, in the Russian capital. Since 2004, there hasn't been a bombing like this in the heart of the Russian capital. Last year we had a bombing on a train that ran between Moscow and St. Petersburg, and that was a shock. I think it was about 27 people killed during that, because that was carried out by Chechen separatists. And that was seen as an attempt to strike at the heart of Russian society. But these attacks right in the heart of the Russian capital go much further than that. Basically killing, 37 people so far this morning in two staged attacks at the peak hours of the Moscow metro system, with 500,000 people on board the trains as this happened, across the metro system in general. And so obviously this delivers a very stark message and a very chilling message to the people of Moscow.
Okay, Matthew, we'll leave it there so that you can go off and do some reporting. Matthew has just arrived at Lubyanka station, as he was telling us, so I'm sure Matthew will be joining us again shortly with an update of whatever he has been able to discover while he's at Lubyanka. But Matthew was telling us that the prosecutor's office in Moscow believes that these were terrorist attacks, also saying they think that suicide bombers were involved, with a fairly accurate description of what they think went on. They're saying that roughly between 2 to 3 kilograms worth of explosives were used in each attack at the Lubyanka rail station, where 22 people are known to have died, and at Park Kulturi, where at least 12 people are known to have been killed. Russia has been dealing with terrorism for a number of years. Let's take you back to 1999, when you may recall that over a 12-day period, bombs exploded at apartment buildings in 3 Russian cities, including Moscow. 293 people were killed then. Rebels in Dagestan were blamed as part of the wider Chechen war. And then in October of 2002, Chechen rebels took over a Moscow theatre and held 850 people hostage. That all went on for a couple of days until Russian forces stormed the theatre, killing 29 rebels. At least 100